Welcome to Born to be Barefoot. I'm your host, Stuart Gordon, with my co-host, Katie Tsuyuki.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Born to be Barefoot podcast. I'm your host, Katie Tsuyuki, and I'm missing my co-host, Stuart, this week, but I'm sure he'll join us for next week. We have a returning guest this week. We have Jeff Stapleton from Toronto, Canada. Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm in good form now. Thank you, Katie. And you?
I'm in good form down here. For those of you guys who don't know, I host this podcast from New Zealand. So a lot of time my guests like Jeff are in North America or they're in Europe. So I'm here in New Zealand. And like I said, Jeff, you're in Toronto. What's the weather doing in Toronto there?
Actually, I'm in London, Ontario, Canada, which is 2 hours due west of the great city of Toronto. And it's crazy weather here. It's +4 right now. Average temperatures here in January are like -12 to -15. We have no snow, and we're on a snow belt. So I don't know. We're global warming, whatever you want to call it, but we're in the middle of a heat wave, literally. And tomorrow is supposed to be 14 and rainy.
What?
No snow anywhere, Katie. So it's good you're in New Zealand and not trying to ski anywhere in Ontario, Canada, because there's just nothing. It's crazy.
Now, for those of you guys who missed our conversation with Jeff the last time, Jeff is a running man. He is the running man. He is the natural runner. Jeff does not like wearing shoes, right, Jeff? Anywhere? Banks,
yeah,
restaurants,
shopping.
Yeah.
Airports.
So for someone like you in Canada, where the climate's quite cold, to have 14 degrees weather, like, are you happy with that?
I'm in heaven, but it is unsettling because we're so used to having about 2 to 3 feet of snow and really, really bone-chilling cold this time of the year. So I don't know. We've only had one bout of cold weather since early November, which is exceedingly rare for this part of the country in North America anyway.
Yeah, strange times for many things.
It's heaven for me. I barely missed a day. I mean, I've been out barefoot in pretty cold weather, but usually I carry my water shoes just in case frostbite starts to set in. And then I take the high road and cover up a little bit.
At what stage, like, do you have a certain pain threshold where you're actually like, okay, I need to stop and put on these water shoes? Or do you just start off with them? Or
it varies. Like this morning, I started out barefoot, but it was quite mild. And then I hit an area where I wasn't really certain of the terrain. So I threw my water shoes on. It was really dark. It was pretty early in the morning. And so sometimes I'll do that in really cold conditions. The worst conditions for me are slushy conditions, where it's like -2 or 0, and we've had heavy snow, and it just kind of turns to slush. And
you're running in your bare feet.
Yeah, and then it gets uncomfortably cold really, really fast. And as soon as I feel my toes, usually that's the first sign. If I feel them tingling, they start to tingle a little bit, like they're kind of on fire, I know I'm in trouble. That usually means I've gone a little too deep, and some of the nerve endings are starting to get fried inside my toes. And so then I usually know then I'm going to pay a price when I get home, because then as my feet thaw out, the pain is excruciating. And then usually the bottoms of my toes will turn black within about a day or two. And then the pain.
And that is the frostbite, right? Like the black, that's the skin dying and
dead skin. Yeah. And so then I try to wait as long as possible before I peel off the black on the bottom of my feet, because if I peel it off too early, or if it cracks too early, the underlying skin is too raw. Like it's literally raw, like raw hamburger. And that is even more painful than the frostbite. So I have to be cognizant of the tingling. So I try to take myself to the point where my feet haven't gone numb. They're not tingling. They're still, I can still feel the blood flowing. And then I know I'm still good to go for another maybe kilometer or so in those conditions before I have to put my water shoes on and just provide a little bit of protection so that I can make it home without losing a couple of toes. It's a weird feeling. Yeah, if you haven't experienced it, you don't really know what I'm talking about, and you probably don't want to know. But you being a skier, your fingers, maybe you've had frostbite in your fingers and your nose, your cheeks, or something like that, Katie. Maybe not as bad as on my toes, but you probably experienced something similar.
I don't know. We have pretty cush. I haven't gotten trapped out in the wilderness. For those of you guys who don't know, I've done snowboarding professionally at Olympic level. So what Jeff is referring to is I spent many hours outside in the cold. But you know what? I had a friend who always said, "There's no bad weather, Katie, only bad gear." But I guess that's kind of gets thrown out the window when you're like running around in -2 and slushing your bare feet.
Yeah, like when you're 3/4 naked, that rule goes out the window, Katie. And it's really about you've got to really be tuned in, not only awareness, but you need to suck up your pride and understand that, okay, going that extra kilometer barefoot, like, what are you making $1 million doing that? No, you're not doing that. So what you're doing is you're putting your feet, really a part of your body at high risk, and it's not worth it at the end of the day. So I've learned the hard way. Believe me, my feet are pretty beaten up from decades of doing this, but I will say that I'm getting a little more intelligent about the process. So I'm doing a lot more prep work in like November, early December. In other words, gradually conditioning my feet, especially to the outdoors. And I also run topless a lot in the winter. So I'll condition my body to handle -10, -12, just in shorts and my water shoes. But it's not really recommended for the average human being. It's just something that you have to work up to. And I just find my immune system responds well to the conditions, and so I can generally stave off most types of bacterial infections. And even my body, E. coli, I've been exposed to many times in my career, and it's never really gotten the better of me yet. My system seems to be able to fight it off. Now,
do I want to know why you've been exposed to E. coli so many times?
Well, I was in could I swear? Could I use a 4-letter word? I was in the shit business for most of my business career.
Like Penny Wagon.
Yeah, not quite. A little bit worse than that. Actually, working in wastewater treatment plants where we collect, those places would collect human waste from all kinds of regions. And I would have to go in, our company would treat that human waste and turn it into CO2 and liquid water. And so to do that, I had to immerse myself literally sometimes into the shit. And so you kind of get used to not only inhaling that stuff, but having it on your skin and, all around you, right? And you try to protect yourself, but you can't 100%. So you either your body learns how to tolerate that and fight through it, or you end up dying, I think. I don't know.
That's Darwin's theory, right?
25 years of doing that in conjunction with my fitness world, where I was constantly exposing myself to extremes, swimming in the Arctic Ocean, swimming in the North Sea, swimming in the Irish Sea, swimming in the Indian Ocean, swimming in the South Atlantic, swimming pretty much every major ocean, the Pacific, but it usually in the northern climates where those waters are not only dangerous, they're ultra cold. So you've got to get yourself used to tolerating those extreme conditions, and still at the same time knowing when your body is at risk of like hypothermia or frostbite or whatever. So there's a fine line, Katie. But when I got good at doing it, I don't know, my body just felt stronger. I felt healthier. I slept better. I trained better. I worked out better. I actually, many people will doubt this, but I would actually think clearer. Most people would say, well, you don't think at all. You're just crazy. But generally, I find that my brain would actually process information a lot better than before I started doing all of this. And as I say, I'm going back decades now, Katie. It probably essentially really got into it late 20s, maybe early 30s and now I'm going to be 70, if you can believe it. I'm one old dude.
I cannot believe it. So let's go back to like October, November when you're getting yourself ready to do all of this barefoot, topless winter training.
Yeah, do it gradually. I take cold showers as a matter of course, and I mean cold. I turn it to the coldest temperature that I have on my shower, and also I'll do outdoor, like when we've got the hoses hooked up. We can't do it in the winter here because the pipes freeze. But right up until the end of November, early December, we've got the outdoor hoses, and I just turn those on full crank, get naked, and just keep hosing myself until my body is tingling. And then I know that I'm at a point where I can handle better the onset of the winter conditions. So I'll do that for my feet. I'll do that for my head, my neck, my arms, my chest. The funniest part is that the extremities, I guess it isn't the funniest part, the most natural part is that the extremities are the ones that I find take the abuse the worst, probably because the blood doesn't flow nearly as fast.
So far.
Big volume out there, other than maybe the head. So normally I can submerge my head, but my fingers, my eyeballs, my testicles.
They don't just crawl back up. Like that's what they do.
I've got 3 Adam's apples. So it's, things like that are really hard. Those are hard to toughen enough for the ultra cold. But again, it can be done. But there's a fine line for me because I'm not like the Wim Hofs of this world. I won't go under an ice floe and swim for 500 meters or some crazy thing in sub-zero water. I'm not into that world at all, but I'll swim in sub-zero water. I'll make sure I go in and get myself activated and then come out, and then I'm never in for more than a minute. So it's more of just a process that I do, and I try and do it on a daily basis. Some days I can't, so then I just get under the cold shower and just keep that going right from year round, but especially as I hit into October, November, early December. I try to make it a little more extreme because I know if I'm going to go outside in our winter weather in Canada, I've got to be prepared for extremes. And it can go from +2 to -15 overnight in our country. Yeah. Especially now, the climate change and everything else. You guys probably experienced a little of that in New Zealand in certain areas, Katie. But here, it's really extreme in Canada. It's unbelievable the differences we're seeing in the temperatures. Yeah. So that's the main process I use. I just kind of gradually adapt my body to colder and colder water and conditions. And then standing outside, like if there's snow on the ground, I'll either lie in the snowbank or I'll stand there and just run on the spot, do a couple of quick movement exercises to toughen my feet and my circulatory system to the ultra cold. So it's a process. You got to be committed to it. And I know you were saying about New Year's resolutions and things like that. And I always equate it to it's more little things that you commit to as opposed to a big resolution. Like if you want to change a certain part of your life, you take a small part of it, you visualize what you might want to accomplish in that part of your life, whether it's a career change, whether it's a weight loss thing, whether it's a physical fitness thing, whether it's a competitive thing. There's really anything, whether it's relating to family. If you try and take on the whole world in one resolution, you're destined to fail. It's just not going to work, right? So I look at my buildup for winter running the same way. If I try and just go out in -15, barefoot and topless, with no preconditioning, I'm done. Like I don't care how tough I am, I'm going to suffer badly, right? And so my big goal gets blown up by my idiocy around the little goal, right? So if you look at what you were saying in what you sent to me, many people make the mistake of a New Year's resolution on December 31st at 11:59 p.m. Oh man, I'm going to lose 50 pounds. I'm going to be in the gym every day. I'm going to compete in my first triathlon in 3 months. I'm going to do it in 3 months, and blah blah blah. You've got all these grandiose I's, whereas none of them are really grounded in reality, right? So I always like to equate it. There's a book by a guy named James Clear, Clear. I don't know if you've heard of the gentleman, but the book is called Atomic Habits, Habits, Atomic Habits. And if you think of the atom, small molecule that when it's combined with many atoms, you can create an atomic bomb, right? Something that's bigger than the Earth itself. So he uses that as atomic habits, taking small components of a habit you want to break or a habit that you want to expand on, right? And then you build out from that one atom. So it's an interesting concept. He's got a couple of podcasts out. I think he's written a book. I've listened to one of the podcasts. Quite interesting approach to this whole New Year's resolution thing, or goal setting, or weight loss, whatever you want to call it, Katie. Even periodized training for athletes, the same thing. You know yourself from your competitive experience and Olympics experience. It's one thing to have the periodized program. It's another thing to stick to it and to be dedicated to it. And also what I call breaking through those plateaus. And you've probably experienced those in your training. And everyone experiences it. When you're in a diet, you lose 5 pounds in the first week and you think, oh, baby, I'm on fire, right? Then week 3 hits and you don't lose a pound. You actually put a pound on. Mm-hmm. And you're thinking, what the hell? I'm doing the exact same thing. And I said, yeah, but if you're doing the exact same thing, expect the same results, right?
Mm-hmm. So well, your body's already made the adaptations, right?
You've got to shock it. When I say shock it, you've got to do something a little more dramatic to take it out of its comfort zone. Because our body likes comfort. Our body likes to be in a comfort zone. It doesn't like to be, rattled around and shocked out of its comfort zone. That's where you get so comfortable sitting on your ass watching TV and letting the world go by, because it's easy, it's simple, right? And your body just kind of eases into it. But then when you say to your body, I want to get up off my fat ass and I want to move myself from A to B, that's 50 meters. Can I walk that 50 meters without quitting, right? A little thing like that. There are a lot of people who won't walk that 50 meters, right? Because their heads think, that's too hard. That's too much effort. Blah, blah, blah. Why would I do that? Blah, blah, blah. So they haven't set that kind of goal around the atomic habits to change the bigger habit, right? Mm-hmm. And so I always look at resolutions rather with a jaundiced eye. I don't set them myself. I'm so goal driven in my life anyway already, Katie, that I'll constantly challenge my body to go outside its comfort zone. I just do that because that's the way I'm wired. Not many people are, as you know, are wired that way. Even top-notch athletes, if they don't have somebody there, boom, 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 they're not going to take themselves into those areas of uncomfortableness. That's not a word, but discomfort, right? They're not going to do it. So if we touch on a little bit more what you sent me, I think that kind of starts in on the resolution thing. But I think from the standpoint of keeping it real, keeping it achievable. And it's when most of us get into that, hey, I'll have one great big grandiose goal, and I know I don't have any chance of achieving it, but maybe on the outside chance I can get close. Well, with each passing day, when you haven't kind of got yourself to first base, even halfway to first base, the frustration sets in.
Right. Yeah. So like my favorite saying is motivation creates habit. And I think for this time of the year, that's quite important, right? Like for me, I can just go, hey, you know what I'm going to do if I'm out of my workout phase, whatever. I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to do 10 minutes. I'll do 10 minutes of kettlebell swings, whatever. And then I'll call it a day. But that motivation of doing the 10 minutes, it's never 10 minutes. It's always at least 20, 25 minutes. Like I'll go on and warm up, feel good, go on to the next set. Right. So, yeah. But it's the thinking of that. Okay, I'm just going to do that little chunk that leads to that big chunk, which eventually leads to that consistency that you're talking about before, yeah. Right?
Really important. And I'll even dummy it down further. Many people make these resolutions. Well, I want to lose X amount of weight because I've just let myself go, right? I don't feel healthy. I don't feel well. I don't sleep, all those excuses. And so I would say, and this is something that James Clear talks about, and my wife highlighted it, said just find a gymnasium or an exercise area where there's equipment, there are people in there doing stuff, there's classes going on, and just walk in. Walk in, 5-10 minutes. You're on a little bit of a tour with somebody who's trying to sell you $17,000 of memberships. You're not interested in that, but you just want to get into that mode where you soak up the energy and you're saying, wow, okay, this isn't quite what I thought. Then you leave. And then you come back on another visit. You're saying, well, I'm not quite ready to sign up, but I'd like to spend maybe 20 minutes just observing a class or something like that. You're not doing anything physically, but mentally, you're conditioning yourself to say, hey, you know what? I could do that class, or I could do part of that class, or I could go into that exercise area and take the kettlebells and lift 2-pounders or 5-pounders or whatever. I could do that. And I could do that maybe 10 minutes. I've been in here 15 minutes already. Now, I haven't done anything physical, but I'm getting my head into that mindset, right? And so I say to people, if you dummy it down like that, I use that phrase, meaning if you simplify it to the point where it becomes manageable, not only manageable, but it becomes doable. Like you can actually do this. It's not something that's way out of your spectrum, right? And so that applies to anything. It might be a family relationship where you haven't spoken to a sibling in 5 years or something weird happened. And so maybe the first step is taking a look at photo albums of the family back in the day, and you say, oh, geez, I remember when we did that. And then you're like, man, you know what? She's a pretty decent person. Like, how did it go sideways? So you start to evaluate, hey, maybe it was as much my fault as it was hers. Maybe it's time that I go to the next level. That might be a quick email or a text or something. Hey, just checking in. Would you be open to a phone call or something like that? So you're not taking on the world in one fell swoop to solve an issue. You're breaking it down into component parts that you can manage, right? And that, and again, that doesn't necessarily have to apply to diet and exercise only. It can apply to all components of your life. And I think if more of us do that kind of thing, Katie, it creates more of a happy world, where you've got happy faces, right? Where you're in a way more positive energy field, right?
Yeah.
And, and you can tie it into everything else that we're about with the barefoot and the activation through the feet and the barefoot science and all that great stuff that helps to stimulate positive energy through the body from the brain back through the whole system, right? So that's where I would go beyond just the sports application side of it or the fitness part of it to the rest of your life.
Yeah, and I mean, you talked a bit kind of about language, like the self-talk, the I don't feel so good, so I'm not going to do that or blah blah blah. And I really like coming from an athlete's point of view. We do work a lot with psychologists and stuff to get that kind of negative talk out of your head, and then spending all of those years doing that, you really start to notice how, like, just everyday people who you come into contact with, just the way how they talk to other people, like I have a 2-year-old son. So lots of everyone's first instinct when they're talking to these toddlers are be careful, be careful, be careful. Right. And the next thing I know, my son's looking at this and he's like, oh, be careful. And I'm like, no, hold on. I try to use the language like be sturdy, be smart, be strong, because being careful doesn't necessarily do what you want them to do. Right. And that little language like that really trickles down, I think, into people's lives. Like, Jeff, do you have an experience with someone who has like real bad, that, inner dialogue, or just using those like negative words and, don't, when they say like, don't look down, instead of being like, hey, look up, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm right with you on all of that, Katie. And as a matter of fact, I'm a certified, believe it or not, seniors fitness instructor. So I work with quite a few people who are actually younger than I am in the class, and many who are older. But I take them into really, really uncomfortable places within the physical exercise spectrum and the mental spectrum. So I incorporate all of that into my classes. And if I had a nickel for every time I would come up and I would be working with the group, sometimes there's usually anywhere from 14 to 20, 22 seniors in the group. So I've got to kind of keep my eyes and ears peeled. But the big thing is, I can't do that. And I said, did I hear that word can't? I said, you remember what I said when we first started this? There's no such word as can't in here. We can, we will, and we are. When you look at that breakdown, we can do it. We will do it. Oh, and look, we are doing it. So I take them from a negative perspective where already they've shut their brains down. As soon as they shut their brains down, their body follows, right? It has no chance of doing what it possibly could do if given the mental chance, right?
Yeah.
So when I take them out of that can't mode or I won't do this. And I said, well, that's your choice. But when you say won't, is it because you can't, or you fear you can't? Or is it because you can, but you just don't want to go there? There's a big difference. So we try to break down that language and eliminate, like you said, Katie, those negative words that you can say, be careful. Well, I'm not a real big fan of that phrase, only because even when you're careful, bad things can happen.
Yeah.
And so I'm always more around the point of, hey, you know what? Don't be afraid to step into the breach, put yourself on the edge, right? There's a fine line, as I found out, about falling off the side of a volcano and staying on the trail. There's a fine line. And when you go into those areas where you have the potential of physically dying, that's probably going a little too far, And so I understand the difference between taking yourself over that edge and keeping yourself just on the positive side of the edge, right? And still giving yourself the chance to do. All right. And I work with my young athletes here in London, and the biggest conversation I have with them is, do you believe in yourself? Do you believe in yourself enough to win the match you have in 1 hour? Do you have the confidence in yourself, in your game, to get your opponent to play your game? Or are you just going to, you can't play not to win, right? Or you can't play not to lose. You've got to play to win, or you've got to compete to win. So in the language vernacular, and I say to them, if obviously they have a certain skill level. So physically, they can put the ball where they want to put it. They can return the ball where they want to return it fairly consistently. What'll block them is that confidence of, I don't want to hit the ball wide. I don't want to hit the ball long.
Yeah.
I don't want to hit the ball into the net. And I'm going, well, wait a minute. You just eliminated the whole goddamn game. You may as well not play. You got to hit it wide. You got to hit it deep. You got to get it over the net. You got to play the angles. You've got to attack. You cannot get into playing a defensive game that your opponent is dictating. That may happen on one or two shots, but the rest of the time you've got to be in attack mode, and that's how I'm training you. I'm training you so that you can compete in attack mode, not to lay back and let the opponent dictate the whole flow to you, right?
Yeah.
So that language becomes exceedingly important. And I'm with you on that. When kids at a young age are told to be careful, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. In their mind, they're thinking, well, what can I do? What am I supposed to do? I'm being told that I can't, right? So they start to believe they can't at a very young age.
Absolutely.
2-year-olds absorb everything, right? Like, he's like a sponge.
Oh, so
you're trying to take him down a certain path, and others are thinking they're helping you. Really, they're taking him down another path that really he doesn't want to go down. Ultimately, he doesn't know it yet. But
I don't want to send him down there.
No, you don't want to send him into that foxhole, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah, so that's why I just think that the language and our self-talk is something that I think people can. I mean, it takes work to getting those triggers of, hey, what am I saying to myself? But you don't have to physically go into a gym. You don't have to, necessarily hire somebody else, or it's just, looking a little bit more inside, realizing what your self-dialogue, what's happening, what am I saying to myself? How am I getting myself to go to work or deal with my kid or go out for that workout? Do I feel like, and we talked about this with a previous guest, do I feel like it's a chore to go and do that workout? Or do I feel like it's a privilege to be able to go and work out? And I think that, this is a good time of the year to be, when we want to talk about self-improvement and what we can do. I definitely think that the inner dialogue isn't always the first thing that people think about when they think about self-improvement. It's always like with your clients, Jeff, do you have someone that comes in and be like, I really want to tell myself to stop doing that? Or are they like, I really just want to break that time of, 3 hours for my marathon, or I want to, lose 20 pounds or something like that, right?
Yeah, it's usually the latter. The people that I work with, that I train, whether it's mostly directly, but many online as well, we have those conversations around basically not just committing to a process, right? But understanding that you need to be open to challenging yourself to go a little bit deeper with your conditioning workouts, with your competitive workouts, right? There's a difference. And understanding that most people on our beautiful planet need to have, if you want to call it the motivation or guidance or whatever, of someone else. That's just human nature. If it wasn't human nature, if we are all intrinsically motivated to be the best we possibly can be, there wouldn't be a need for anybody like me. I could.
Oh, come on, Jeff. The world needs people like you. Who am I supposed to roll my window down and honk at when I see them running around topless and barefoot in the wintertime, huh?
Yeah. And
that's some good roadside entertainment.
Yeah, that's what the police in Mississauga, where else? Up at our cottage, Toronto, they wouldn't have anybody to pin up on their wall and laugh at. Say, you wouldn't believe where we saw this guy and what he was doing, And remember, I was stopped by our finest police officers wondering what the heck happened to my feet, my shoes, and why I was running around half naked in the middle of the winter. And just to make sure that I wasn't escaped from, some psychiatric ward or something like that. And then they find out, oh, geez, the guy actually makes a little bit of sense what he's talking about, even though he's crazy. So I look at it from the standpoint of people needing to have that extra little bit of motivation, Katie. But it's in my world anyway. It's got to be realistic. It's got to be a certain way of taking an individual beyond A into B, within their comfort zone, but also outside their comfort zone. In other words, you're not putting them at physical risk of injury, but you're putting them at physical risk of challenging themselves to go a little bit deeper, right? And I equate it to the kids with autism. I work on the spectrum with a lot of kids that basically don't get the one-on-one or small group focus of physical conditioning and mental discipline to stimulate their brains to work a little more efficiently, simply because the workers are not trained that way. They're trained a certain way to work with kids with autism as far as life skills, things like that. The families, God love them, they're just trying to get through a day. 24/7, they are challenged by their children who, God love them, they're the greatest kids on the planet, but they cannot live on their own. So they're challenged at that level. So I come in and I create an environment where the kids not only succeed, but they succeed way beyond what anyone else has thought they were capable of doing. Getting kids who are told they can't stand out of a wheelchair, standing, doing pull-ups on a wall bar. Right?
Wow.
Things like that. So when I can create an environment that allows people on the spectrum, Down syndrome, Asperger's, where they can go into a world where all of a sudden they're achieving things that maybe in their brain they thought they could, but they had no idea how to go about it. Now they've been given permission to do it, right?
Well, maybe you're the one that stopped saying, be careful.
Oh, way beyond. And, I've had kids, literally, they've fallen out of the wheelchairs, right? They've, collapsed down onto the ground and rolling. And the first thing they say to me, they want me to know, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. Yeah. Meantime, their parents are panicking. Their workers are panicking. I'm kind of panicking, thinking, maybe we went too deep. But it turns out that, more to your point, I don't have the fear, Jeff. Everyone around me has the fear, but I don't have the fear, right? And so I look at it, Katie, and I say, there's got to be ways for people generally to get themselves into a happier, more positive world without having to go into, and I know there are therapists and there are people who need therapists at certain points in their lives, but I really believe that many, many times the people have not allowed themselves the freedom, right, to break out of whatever it is that's holding them down, the depression, the negativity, the anxiety, et cetera, et cetera. And to me, a lot of that is, I'm not good enough to work here. I'm not good enough to study there. I'm not good enough to ski down Blue Mountain. Forget about Whistler or in New Zealand. I don't know. You probably have pretty steep kinds where people just wouldn't even think about trying to ski down them, as an example.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm saying, why not? You're saying, why would, I say, why not? Why wouldn't you take it on as a challenge to yourself? You don't have to ski the whole thing in one fell swoop, right? Ski down a couple of meters, control yourself, stop, take a look, take a breath, a few more meters. Before you know it, you're halfway down and you haven't fallen, you haven't broken anything, you haven't killed yourself, right? And you're experiencing the exhilaration of accomplishing that, right? So I think a lot of the times we as individuals, we're our own worst enemies, right?
Yes.
And even I would argue from an Olympic standpoint, you've probably experienced it over your many years at a high level of training and competing, where certain athletes, you can look in their eyes and they're not ready. They're not there. There's something there. There's a little bit of a fear look, or there's a little bit of trepidation, or they break eye contact or whatever. And then there are certain others that they're just zoned right in. They're locked in on the moment. And you've probably experienced that too when you've had some of your best results. You're just locked in. It's almost like you're not skiing. You're sort of floating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to get into that space, it doesn't happen very often. But when you experience it, then why can't you replicate it? Well, you can, but you've got to be able to keep yourself in that moment, right? Understand that, as James Clear says, don't take on the great big Mount Everest, right? Even in Mount Everest, they climb sections at a time, right? Small bites to achieve the big goal, right? So it's a process that most of us just don't kind of take the 15, 20 minutes sitting down and clarifying those to ourselves in the beginning of the year, like January 1 or January 2. By the time you get to January 3, you've kind of lost the idea. And then January 4, January 5th.
I don't know. I'm on January 11th. I'm still trying to sort out what exactly my resolution is going to be.
And you're not alone. Hey, Katie, you're going to hit the middle of June and going, holy crap, I'm halfway in the year and I can't even remember what the hell my goals were. And I wrote them down. I can't find them. I lost them in the freaking office somewhere or whatever, So yeah. It's not a simple, easy thing. But I think for a lot of us, if we stopped and just backed up from the big picture to the little things, like taking that first step inside a gym where maybe you've never been inside one, or you haven't been inside one in like 20 years, and just looking around, absorbing the atmosphere, and then walking out and thinking, okay, that wasn't, nobody yelled at me. Nobody screamed at me. I didn't fail. I didn't, break my toe on a weight, blah. Okay, all good. It's all positive. Let me try that again. You go back in for a little bit longer. Next thing you know, you think, hey, would it be okay if I, just sat on that bike over there for 5 minutes just to try it out? Because I'm really sincerely looking at this, but I want to make sure that I'm going to take advantage of it. And if you're a good membership person, you'll understand that this is somebody struggling with the process. So you say, yeah, sure, go ahead. Hop on the bike. You want to use the rower for 5 minutes just to try it out? We'll show you some of the techniques if you're open to it. If not, just try it and then walk the hell out, come back in. And I think if people in the fitness industry would understand that for a lot of people, if you want them to commit to excellence and continue with the membership and then continue paying for the membership, right? You've got to make it as almost foolproof for them as you possibly can. You don't keep sign here, yeah, blah, blah, blah. I need an extra $50 a month out of you so you can have a personal trainer who you will never use, by the way. And and then that's all destined to failure. Then they're going to stop. They're probably going to try and cancel their membership. And so all that money that you thought you had coming in is not coming in, right? So it all ties into a process of us being a little more in tune with each other, supporting each other, but also understanding that if you set goals a little bit too out there, a little bit too big all at once, then destined not to work, right?
Yeah, definitely. I like the home gym because I guess I'm a little bit different because I'm very self-motivated to work out on my own. But, for me, someone who's strapped for time to drive to a gym is like basically my 10 minutes that I was going to give to my fitness. So, like I just have a TRX system. I have a couple kettlebells. For those of you guys who don't know what a TRX system is, it's a suspension trainer. It's basically 2 bits of rope or webbing that hooks up to the back of a door or to an anchor. And you can do about, 100 or so different exercises on that. Just using your own body weight, which is good, Jeff? Because then, for anyone who does, you make it simpler, you can make it harder just by moving feet, and, yoga mat and a Bosu ball. And you can pretty much get everything you need to get done with just those few pieces of equipment. And, within a very short time, if like you're a mom or you're just strapped for time, you only have those 10 minutes then to get it done. But definitely hooking up with someone like you, Jeff, where you can provide a program and an assessment to help give them some guidance, right? is
Yeah,
useful.
and I do that with a lot of my clients. They will recruit me to design a program around a specific goal. So before I even start, I ask upwards of 20 questions of the potential client. And this is all done online through my coach email. And when I get the answers to those questions, I look for a pattern of commitment within the questions, within the answers. If I don't see that, I go back and I say, are you really sincerely committed to doing the work required to achieve your ultimate goal, which occurs in 3 months, right? And so I'll work from that premise and then build the program around that. And my programs are pretty extensive from the standpoint of goal orientation, right? I don't do a lot of 12-month periodized annual training programs for clients. I find that, first of all, it's unless you're really a competitive athlete, it's going to be exceedingly difficult to even understand.
Yeah, then you're sitting at the bottom of Everest being like, how do I get up there, even with this map?
Total failure. So we work on smaller junkets, sometimes a month. Sometimes I'll design a 3-month program. But within that, each day stands on its own. And it's scheduled around the person's life. And I'll say to them, adapt it. Adapt it as needed. Like you said, Katie, busy, you've got family, you got jobs, you got travel, you got all kinds of other things interfering. You might get sick, God forbid, but be adaptable with it, right? Yeah. It's not etched in stone, in other words. So I do a lot of that kind of work, but I'm big with you. I mean, I've always had a home gym area or an exercise area, and I just create. I just create, as you said, I use my own body weight. I use gravity. I use the odd piece of equipment, but I bring equipment into my gym specific to some of the young athletes I train, whatever sport that is, because there are certain pieces of equipment I need to simulate the stresses of their sport, like I used to do with you in Clarkson, with you in full equipment on the ball. We're trying to simulate as much as we can your physical environment on the snow without being on the snow, right? And so that's the kind of gym setup I have here in London. And it works really, really well for the athletes I work with. But my own kind of workout, I'm like you, Katie, I might use 4 or 5 pieces of equipment, but the rest of the time I'm using my body weight. I'm using angles, right? I'm using basic physics to create the kind of body movement I want to strengthen whatever part of the body I'm working on, and I combine that with my running and my swimming and my teaching classes and all that kind of stuff. So it keeps me out there and constantly challenging myself to be better, right? So, but that's when you're intrinsically motivated. That very few of us are like that.
Yeah, a lot of us need a kick in the pants to get going. But Jeff, beginning of the year, if you were to give your 2023 best exercise movement to do that people can just get up out of their seat and do it, or what would it be? Can you take us through what that one kind of big exercise would be? Good.
Well, there's I mean, the exercise, I've always said there are 2 exercises that if I had nothing else on the planet but a little bit of space, I would say to do sumo squats, 10 variations of a sumo squat. I'd have to, I won't go into details, but the bottom line is it's just a tremendous little exercise that anyone can do. It's just not that easy to do all the variations. You start with
variations. Do you mean feet pigeon-toed, or feet ballerina, or is it depth, or?
I mean, when you get into the sumo squat position, right? Goal number 1 is to make sure anatomically you're in an advantageous position. but then you hold what I call position A, just stable, locked in, hold 30 seconds or 20 seconds.
In the squat, like a ISO squat, basically.
Yeah, you got the elbows pushing out inside the knees, and you got the knees pushing in against the elbows, right?
Okay, yeah.
Locked in from the feet all the way out. Every single part of your body other than your eyeballs are on fire. And you hold that for many times. When I started with my clients, we'd be lucky to get 10 seconds in before they'd have to pull out.
And are you poking them while they're doing this? Are you like, make this fire more stable?
I have to be a little bit cautious about doing that because people are like, what the hell are you just poked me in the ass, for Christ's sake. What are you doing? And so I actually do. I will walk up and I'll go and I'll give them a little push in the arm. And if they fall over, I said, hey, you got to lock in. If I can knock you over just by tapping your shoulder, right? You're not locked in. You're not fired up, right? And so, yeah, I test them a little bit like that. And then we just go into, believe it or not, doing circles from the sumo squat. Circle one direction.
Like from your feet, the whole body?
Yeah. You're shifting like this, boop, 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 and you're circling right around.
Or are you move like picking your feet up off the ground and your body's like your whole body's twisting. So it's not like a gyro motion. It's an actual mechanical body turning motion.
Gravity, and you're circling and then you circle back. And then I do angled. So you're going from the side and you're angling one way, you come back and then you angle the other way and come back.
Angle like a crab?
You just go on a 45-degree angle. Instead of going straight, right? You go angled.
Angles.
Angle back.
Okay.
So you're going at about a 45-degree angle one way and then the other. And you're like, holy shit. And holy shoot. You're only on option number 3. And then I'll do single leg lifts, stationary single leg lifts, right?
Do they get breaks in between?
Yeah. No, well, not usually. Usually with my team, we build up, but normally we go for 30 seconds for each exercise. That's our goal.
Right.
And we do it without a break. We just go boom, 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 boom. And then the other ones with hopping, we'll hop on the spot. We'll do one leg lifts, alternate, and then we'll do hopping on the spot. And
in
then
the sumo squat.
Yeah. And then we'll do hopping forward, hopping backwards. And then if I'm outdoors, we're doing hill workouts, I'll have them do the sumo squat up and down a hill. And if you think you're really fit, try doing that. So if I had one exercise I could say to people to do the sumo squat like for 5 seconds. Just get the feel of what that's like, and then you'll know what it's like to activate your whole body with one exercise.
When you do the sumo squat, are your feet like parallel to each other, or do you like the duck stance?
I usually do it with the feet forward, so you're not splaying out as you would do like a squat, right? With the knee tracking over the second toe.
Yeah.
I just have them locked in so that the glute muscles are holding the knees and the feet in alignment.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're developing the structure to protect your knees, your hips, your back, your shoulders, and your ankles all in one exercise. Not easy to do. So that would be one that I would say, even if you just got off your butt and got yourself in that position and held it for 5 seconds, got the feel of it. And then you go, whoa, wow, that's kind of cool. Let's try it for 10 seconds, And so you work up from there, you can manage it, right? And then the other one I would do, and everybody knows about the burpee. I don't know how many people say, oh, the burpee, they got to do a burpee, man. And I say, yeah, there's many ways to do a burpee. But the way I would always work my clients, I would start them with your standard burpee where you go down, right? And you throw the legs back, you bring the legs up, and you forget the push-up part of it.
No push-up.
No push-up to start, right? Then I would do what I call a 5-point burpee. I'd work up to a 5-point burpee. Go down, extend back on one leg. So I'd land on my left leg. I'd jump out to the left. I'd jump back into the middle. bring my both feet up, but still only on one foot, and then explode up on the one foot, and then land on the other foot, go back on that foot, out, in, up. So it's a 5-point burpee, one-legged jump, right?
Wow.
So a one-legged burpee, and you still don't have to throw the push-up in there. If you want to add it in, fine. But I find doing it that way creates the ultimate challenge where I do 15 of those, and I can barely move, and that's me. So I wouldn't expect anybody to get off the couch and do that. But
no, it's definitely the more advanced one.
yeah, if you walk through the burpee, you get up off the couch, you do 5 seconds of the sumo squat, and then you go, hey, what if I just drop myself down? Now, the majority of people maybe can't even drop themselves down. So just use a bench, right? Or a wide seat or a couch, right?
Yeah, couch, table, wall even.
Wall, just lean up against the wall, throw one foot back, throw the other foot back, and then just leave the ground like 1 inch, right? And then build up from there. Gradually, you build up your confidence and your strength and your fitness to go from there. And then once you have those 2 foundation exercises done, you don't need any equipment other, like you said, maybe a wall, a chair, a table, a bench, or whatever. But with the sumo squat, you just need you, baby. And so those are 2 that I say, they're manageable, they're challenging, but they're manageable. And then the other thing I'd say, if there's something that you want to get the heart moving a little more like aerobically, and you've got a set of stairs in your house, or even a deck with 2 stairs on it or something like that.
Yeah.
Walk up and down 2 stairs, 1 stair, just go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Play some music, whatever you need to do to motivate you. Some people need that kind of stuff. I don't. I just do it. But if you need the motivation, great. Then you just put on your favorite little tune and you go, oh, up and down the stair. Oh, that's kind of cool. I can do that. Even if I weigh 700 pounds, I can usually lift myself up 1 stair, even if I use a railing, right? So it's a start. It's a start toward giving yourself permission to take better care of your body, right?
Yeah.
So that's another one. I would say, hey, you don't need any fancy equipment. You don't need a trainer. You don't need a gym. You just need a step. And if you don't have a step, just get a flat piece of stone that you can step up and down on. Most of us go to step somewhere in our house, right? Or our apartment or wherever, right? Just go to the stairs.
Hey, they made the whole multi-million-dollar industry on just stepping up on a step.
They did.
In the 90s, 2000s, it was huge. Step classes.
Exactly. You don't even need those, man. You just need a step at home, baby. It costs you nothing. So those would be ones that I would say, and starting the new year, you want to keep it manageable. You want to keep it within your wheelhouse, right?
Yeah.
Just take on a little things like that. The other thing that I find, I'll throw in one because people might think of the sumo squat and they forget about the foundation one and think, oh my God, I'll never do that. So I say, you're sitting in a chair. How many of us can lift ourselves up out of the chair without using our hands on the arms or whatever? Step right up. Yep. Boom. Boom. We take it for granted. Many, many people cannot even do that. So I say you want to strengthen your core area, right? You want to strengthen your legs. You want to work your heart and lung system a little bit. Just practice lifting up and down. And I always say, if you want to make it a little more challenging, instead of a hard bottom chair, use a cushion chair where you sink. So you gotta push yourself up a little higher out of the cushion, right? So a little exercise like that, you can be watching the news. You say, okay, I'm gonna try and do that 5 times without stopping. Just
in a commercial break or something.
3.
No one wants to watch commercials.
Have a 3rd beer, do it again. Have a 4th beer, do it again. And at least that way you're kind of flushing the beer through your system, right?
Yeah.
So realistically speaking, Katie, what it comes down to is that less than 5% of the population actually exercise in a given day. When I say exercise, even go out for a walk.
Really?
Just think about that. Less than 5%.
That's a pretty low, less than 5% of, I guess, the
of the world's population. It's reality. That's exactly it. And so when you hear about people doing, oh man, you're talking about the same people all the time, right? They're the same people who enter marathons. They're the same people who enter triathlons. They're the same people. You look at the lineup and you're going, holy crap. This is like 1/10 of 1% of the population, right? So when you start to look at that and then you say, okay, I want to take the whole, where do you live, Katie? What city in New Zealand?
Right now, I'm in Hawaii, Lake Hawaii.
Hawaii?
Yeah.
Whatever. How are you? You're there.
Pretty much.
You want to take every person in that town or village, right?
Village.
What are there?
Village.
1,000 people, maybe? Not even?
There's going to be more, but yeah, probably about that.
All right. I want all of you to line up, and I want all of you to be honest with me. How many of you do concentrated, focused, physical exercise at least 30 minutes 5 times a week? Hands up.
Right? Yeah.
Not happening, Katie. And that's in your little town. So I take the city of London and I do the same thing, and I find even less than that.
Yeah.
Right? So the challenge then becomes the head. And you can't force anybody to do anything that they don't want to do.
Yeah.
Or if you do it, it's not going to end well, right?
No, never does.
People have to be somewhat motivated. And if they can come back to those atomic habits where it's realistic, that's what I was saying. You break down those key exercises I gave you to start the year off and then add on. I mean, you can take that sumo squat move that we talked about, and you can do so many variations of that and create so many challenges that you can create a whole workout of 20 to 25 minutes around the sumo squat only, nothing else.
You won't walk the next day, but you can create a whole workout around it.
You won't walk for the next year. No, I'm just kidding you. But actually, you get to the point where what I used to use it for is for my runners, because they would get so locked in and so disciplined around holding their bodies in the proper anatomical position. And then I'd say, boom, take off. And they would fly. It would be like they were floating down the track or down the road or whatever. They'd come back to me and say, holy crap, I've never run like this in my life. So I'm saying that the carryover effect into other parts of your life will become so obvious, whether it's gardening, working around your yard or whatever, going up and down the stairs in your home where before your knees were bothering you, your hips were bothering your back. This will strengthen all around those joints that may be semi-arthritic, right? That may have micro tears in them, blah, 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 and provide the protection so that you can live more fluidly without as much pain on a day-to-day basis. And at the end of the day, isn't that what most of us want to get through? I mean, how many of us want to be Katie Suzuki flying down that mountain? Not very many. We wouldn't want to go there, but we don't mind watching you do it and sort of going, wow, that's kind of cool. Maybe I can walk up 10 meters of that mountain, right, to get a closer look or something like that, right? So it's something that motivates people to be a little more active than they are, but within their realm, without putting themselves at risk of injury, right?
I love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's very important.
Yeah. Very important. Absolutely. I love it. All right, Jeff, we're running out of time here, but I love what we talked about today, making that big goal into small ones and taking it kind of piece by piece, finding someone like yourself to help them achieve that goal and plan it out. And we talked about some positive language and how that can really affect if you've set a resolution or just a general goal or your day-to-day life. And Jeff, those are some excellent exercises too. The sumo squat and burpee. I love it. Totally attainable by everybody. So Jeff, if someone wants to reach out to you and they're like, hey, I love Jeff Stapleton, I want to get on his program, or I want to see what this guy's got going, how can they do that? Give us your
who is that idiot? How the hell did he ever get on that podcast? If the best thing, my my email is probably the best way. I do have the website, but it's not really active because I don't run organized clinics anymore like I used to when I was in Toronto. So I've kind of let that website lapse, but at least it has some information on it. So it's just Natural Running.
Naturalrunning.ca.
Yeah, that's the website. My email is coach@thenaturalrunning.com. So people who want to communicate with me directly with some questions, or they may have a goal that they want to achieve in a race or a competition or something like that, they can contact me. And if there's a fit, then we can go forward. If there isn't a fit, we'll know very quickly. So there won't be a lot of wasted time, Katie. Okay.
Yeah, no, you don't waste time.
No, coach@thenaturalrunning.com or naturalrunning.ca. You can check out my website. My blogs are posted up on there. I just posted a couple of others. One, the training routine. One of the routines I take one of my tennis kids through. I've already had a lot of feedback from it. From people are like, "Holy crap! She's 11 years old, and you're doing all this amazing stuff with her." And I said, "Well, this is what's required." Katie, at the elite competition level, you've got to be going into some pretty heavy duty forms of specific training if you want to take it to a new level, right? You just have to do it. You no shortcuts, in other words.
We'll have to check out that blog on your website. Yeah, the 11-year-olds, guys, go check it out.
You would find it interesting. It's just on my, Training Barefoot, my tennis client, my young tennis client. It'll pop up. I just posted it. Geez, I think maybe a week ago. Not even.
Okay. Awesome. So guys, you guys can check out Jeff online or give him an email. I'd like to thank everybody who tuned in this week to the Born to Be Barefoot podcast, powered by Barefoot Science Insoles. If you guys have a chance, go check out their website as well. Or I think you can probably hit the link on this podcast as well. So if you haven't yet, please subscribe to us. Stuart will be with me next week, and I swear he's way more funnier than I am. So you should probably tune in for him. But anyways, thank you so much, Jeff, for being here on the show with us today. And we look forward to having you again on soon. And keep those feet out of the cold.
keep me in the cold. Just
I guess keep the frost off of your feet. Don't want them turning black.
Don't want them black. Well, Katie, You're brilliant. I love being on with you, and Stuart does not have an easy act to follow. Even if he is funnier than you are, you're brilliant. I love you. So well done.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, thank you, everybody, and we'll talk to you again soon. You've been listening to the Born to Be Barefoot podcast with myself, Kate Tsuki, and the wonderful Stuart Gordon. Please remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star review. We'll see you guys next week.